Well, good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you formally and get our agenda underway tonight. Good evening. Sorry we're running a little bit late, but it will be all well worth it. Good evening. My name is Matt Pitta with Quantum Communications. I've been a Cape-based reporter here for going on 21 years on Cape Cod, so I have a clear understanding of the issue that we're talking about here tonight when it comes to the issue of water. First of all, welcome to the Cape Cod Museum of Art and Dennis. What a beautiful facility, isn't it? Here tonight, I hope you had a chance to take a look at some of the artwork. It's just a beautiful gem that we have here on Cape Cod. And on behalf of the Cape Cod Commission, we'd like to welcome you to this watershed event here in Dennis tonight. All of us are here tonight because we are very clearly aware of what is at stake when it comes to the issue of water here on Cape Cod. Really in no other place, if you think about it, no other place is the economy and the environment so clearly intertwined. And it's really our obligation and our duty to do everything we can to protect our environment here on Cape Cod. So let me give you a roadmap of what we're going to do here tonight at the Museum of Arts. We're going to first of all have a presentation from our Cape and Island State Senator Dan Wolf in just a moment. We will then move on to our Cape 2.0 awards with the folks from the Engagement Game Lab at Emerson College. We'll then hear a presentation from Beth Card from Mass DEP and Ken Morath from the US EPA. And then if you haven't seen it yet, you're going to see it here tonight. I've seen it. It's a great video called Saving Paradise, Cape Cod's Water at Risk. And we'll hear a presentation from the APCC and Undercurrent Productions. Then Paul Nidzwicki will join us and talk about an update on the 208 plan, which a lot of us want to hear about here tonight as well, and then some closing remarks. Now, a couple of logistical issues here. First of all, we'd like you to hold off on all of your questions you may have as we go through the presentation until the end. We will have a time allotted for us at the end to go over any questions you have about anything that you hear tonight, so we look forward to those questions as well. Also, as this is ongoing, there's a demonstration of the Watershed MVP and the FEMA flood maps in the other room. That will be ongoing throughout this presentation, and it will also be here for you after this presentation comes to an end. There's plenty of food and drink in the hallway, so please partake in that. So let's get things underway. I'd like to bring up a man who, as the founder of Cape Air, and as now as our Cape and Island State Senator, has been very acutely aware of the environmental issues that affect Cape Cod and has really been a champion of the environment here on the Cape for many years. It is Cape and Island State Senator Dan Wolf. Dan?
So when somebody says, gee, would you like to come and talk to, first of all, thank you for not making an ethics joke. It's rare I get an introduction now where somebody doesn't bring that up. But to come to an event like this, I have to tell you, somebody says, hey, would you like to come make a few opening remarks? We're going to be discussing water, wastewater, watersheds on Cape Cod. And you figure, you know, yeah, I'll show up and there'll be 2 or 3 people in the room and we'll have a nice conversation. That's the way it would have been 20 or 25 years ago if we had an event like this. So one of the most encouraging things about tonight is that it is literally standing room only. And that's because so many people now understand how important an issue this is. Let me just ask a couple of questions. How many people have been enjoying the environment on Cape Cod for 50 years or more? Okay, keep your hands up. 40 years or more. 30 years or more. And 20 years or more. Okay, that is virtually everybody in the room. And the beautiful thing about tonight is this isn't theory. You know, this isn't 20 years ago and we're wondering about climate change. Or this isn't 20 years ago and we're wondering, are we noticing that the eelgrass beds are starting to die off and that there are less shellfish than there used to be. Or that in the case of freshwater that the ponds are starting to get clogged with algae. Or we're noticing a weird smell at certain times in the summer along the shores of some of our estuaries and embayments. It isn't like that 20 years ago. It's now where the evidence is in and we can actually see it happening. In my case, 50 years ago, you could go to the shores of Pleasant Bay. You could walk a few feet off if you could stand walking into the eelgrass, which was always kind of creepy as a kid. But my parents would send me down to the shore, and in a half an hour, we would have all of the scallops, quahogs, steamers, mussels that you could want. We could bring back a plentiful dinner in 5 or 10 or 15 minutes, literally. And those days are long gone. And that's not just because there are more people. It's because of the impact that we're having. As Matt said in his wonderful introduction, we also understand now that the environment here is where our economy actually gets its strength and vibrancy. So this isn't a question of development versus open space, economy versus environment. This is an understanding of the harmony between the two, which give us good livable wage jobs and great communities to live in, but also the beautiful environment that we get to enjoy. Being, as I often remind people, a gateway community to one of the most beautiful national parks in the world. That is where we are. I want to recognize Wendy Northcross. I don't know if you're going to talk later, Wendy, but if you don't, I had the pleasure of serving on the board of directors of the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce for 15 years with Wendy. We both started when we were in high school, right?
That's right.
And was the chair, I think, 2005 through 2007 of the Cape Cod Chamber. And I'm really proud that Wendy, under her leadership, the business community here has really stepped up on this issue. The Chamber of Commerce set up a task force and is working with a lot of business leaders to A, understand and articulate what the challenges are, and then B, figure out ways to pay for it. So that's an important part of it. I've served on the Business Roundtable for about 15 years. I see a couple of Business Roundtable faces in the audience as well. And it was actually around the table at a Business Roundtable meeting that I decided to run for the state Senate that I'm in. And the issue on which I decided to run was the wastewater issue. Cape Cod, it's all about water. So you read a lot of articles about why I may have run for office, because obviously you're involved in a lot of other issues. But the central theme of my run was about wastewater and figuring out ways, environmental community, business community, town government, county government, state government, federal government, to bring all of those different players to the table to figure out the best solutions from a technical perspective, and then figure out how to garner the resources to pay for it. So even though every time I do an interview or write a newspaper article, it may not be about the wastewater issue, there's not a day that goes by that I'm not thinking, how is our generational legacy going to be clean water, or to remember those estuaries and bayments, lakes and ponds that we all remember from 20 and 30 and 40 and even 50 years ago on Cape Cod, really believing that our children and grandchildren will be able to enjoy it the way we did. There are success stories all over the country with this. Cleanups, everything from Boston Harbor to the Great Lakes, a lot of rivers. There were rivers you could throw a match on and they would actually light, that are now clean and in some cases drinkable. So this is solvable, it is doable, and we have to put together the resources, the intellectual horsepower to do it. One of the communities that Cape Air serves is Key West, Florida. Key West, Florida tackled their wastewater issue, I'm going to say probably 30, maybe even more than 30 years ago. 90% of the funding for that project came from the federal government, because in a fit of inspiration and vision, one of those truly left-wing presidents, a guy named Richard Nixon, actually helped set up great initiatives around water and air pollution. And there was a lot of federal dollars. We have to be more creative now, because even left-wing people can't seem to think that there's going to be federal dollars coming. So we got to solve this. The biggest concern I hear is a term that Paul Neswicki will use later, I'm sure, which is economic dislocation, which is we don't want to do this in a way that saves the environment but makes it too expensive for anyone to have property and live on Cape Cod. We're mindful of that. We're mindful of a lot of senior citizens are living on fixed incomes. We're mindful of the fact that housing costs are high on Cape Cod and that it's very difficult for families to locate here because we have relatively high real estate values and relatively low incomes here on the Cape. So we are cognizant of all of the social and economic issues, but we also know that none of those will matter if we don't solve the biggest environmental challenge of our time. Because people won't want to live here, and they won't come here and spend tourist dollars here if we don't address this. So you're going to hear from some incredible technical experts here and people who really understand this environment more comprehensively than you could even imagine. And the neat thing about Cape Cod and the community that we live in is that even though we're 15 parochial towns where we all identify, and you run into someone in Chatham and you ask them, oh, are you from town? And they'll say, no, I'm not from here, I'm from Orleans. You run into someone from Sandwich, and if you're from Chatham, they treat you like a foreigner. So for those of us here on the Cape, it may look like parochial, but I will assure you, if you go a couple of thousand miles away, either to Europe or somewhere else in the United States, and they ask you where you're from, you're going to say, I'm from Cape Cod, because that really ultimately is how we identify ourselves. So this becomes a challenge not for towns to solve as a person from Orleans, Chatham, Sandwich, or whichever town you're from. This becomes a challenge for Cape Cod coming together to solve. And it's what I love about this region, because where we can and need to, we can identify as neighbors in a specific neighborhood. But where we can and need to, we come together as Cape Codders, as a region. Proud of where we live because of the community that we all share, but also because of the environment that we all love so much. So that having been said, you had me at hello. Is that how that movie goes? This is an issue that I'm firmly committed to. And I'm just so pleased we have so much intellect, brain power, commitment to get it done. So I want to thank all of you for filling this room tonight, because that really is so heartwarming and so encouraging. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. And I'm sure many of you, hopefully many of you in the room over the past couple of weeks have been playing the second phase of Cape 2.0. That's a big part of what we're going to do here tonight. We'd like to welcome up our next guest from Cape 2.0. You're in charge to talk about Game 2. I can say we're actually kind of colleagues. I'm an adjunct professor at Emerson College, so we're almost kind of colleagues. Okay. Christina Wilson is the program manager of Community Planet, the Engagement Game Lab at Emerson College, to talk about the second installment of Cape 2.0.
I'm delighted to be here tonight representing the Engagement Game Lab from Emerson College. Let me just make sure. I'm curious how many in the room actually did participate in the online public engagement. If you could raise your hand. Okay. A number of you, but and thank you for coming out tonight. I'm delighted that we have a number of new people who will get to learn about what's been going on over the past 3 weeks, of which this little ceremony that I'm part of is a culmination and to launch the next parts of the planning phase for the work that we're doing. Community Planet is an online engagement platform that's been developed as a game by the Engagement Game Lab. It's a time-limited public forum that rolls out over 3 missions in 3 weeks with 3 major goals. And I just want to cover those really quickly. The first of those is to provide an accessible platform for public discourse as a supplement to traditional town hall meetings like this one. So the game Community Planet doesn't take the place of a town hall meeting. It simply provides the opportunity for more voices to become involved. And I'll talk about who some of those voices were in just a moment. The game also educates and gives a context to a public planning process, like this one about wastewater management. We've been a part of other public planning processes in Detroit, in Philadelphia, in Los Angeles. We're delighted to be working on the Cape, as we have been, as was mentioned, the second of a 2-part process that went on. And the third goal in these 3 weeks is for planners to get community input on long-range goals. So with all 3 of those in mind, these missions roll out. They're time limited. You may have heard of other engagement platforms online where you can basically give your opinion. You can drop in at any time over a course of maybe several months, even a year, to talk to your city government. Community Planet is different in that it allows for a conversation to evolve among community members within the game. So you answer a challenge question, and you're able to interact with other people who have opinions on the matter. So the time-limited aspect of 3 minutes provides a concentration of input. More meaningful conversation can evolve in that environment. It builds a network of interested community partners that can extend beyond the game to meetings like this that happen in person. It emulates, or it ties into the idea that planning processes have deadlines and they have benchmarks to hit and time constraints. And if public input is to be meaningful, then it has to be collected in a timely way. And the Cape Cod Commission is committed to using the data from the game to inform the planning process going forward. There are some trade-offs, of course. The outreach must be nimble and quick. If you don't get in on those 3 weeks, as many of you, it seems like, weren't able to, then you have the opportunity to review the game after it's over, but it's over now. Perhaps there'll be another one in the future, who knows. Also, you trade the number of participants, perhaps, that might drop in over the course of several months, with the quality of engagement, which we think is higher when people get involved for a shorter period of time. They can focus their energy in those 3 weeks and really get invested in it, knowing that there's an end date. The game is data-driven and action-oriented. If you go to communityplanet.org and look for the Cape Cod K2O You're in Charge game, you'll be able to find interactive data visualization of answers to challenge questions that have come up. I will be able to access the internet.
Okay.
I can? Okay. I can show you that. Should I just get on here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's a little bit awkward, but. I'm gonna have to sign in and everything. You know, I think I'll actually forego this for the sake of time. But I'm stuck. You just stick it back. Okay. Anyway, this is an interactive tool that you can click on a number of the challenge questions individually or look at demographic data on large, the way I have it here, sorted by gender, age, race, the stake in the game, which included students, year-round residents, vacationers to the Cape, regular visitors, business owners. Those were some of the main stakeholders, and many of you are in the room tonight. One of the great things about this second iteration of the game, which you may have noticed or may be interested to know, is the number of high school students and middle school students that we have participating in this. The people that have an actual real stake in the future, the long-term future of Cape Cod. The engagement aspect of the game is driven by different incentives and effects. There's competition among individuals for points in the game, and we have a ranking leaderboard here of people that who've won the most coins, as they're understood. Points are understood as coins, and among affiliations of people. So high school students might have affiliated under the school that they attend. Other people affiliated with local organizations that they are a part of, or the towns that they live in. So competition is sort of categorized by individual stakes and collective stakes. So how you earn coins is by going through a series of these challenge questions, and this is just one example of the model of a challenge question, which was an empathy question. Jim has a little bio here. He's a lifelong Cape Cod resident, and he's been elected a selectman. He's worked hard for several months to tackle the wastewater management plan, but he made some promises in his campaign about not raising taxes that now he's got to go back on, he thinks, and he's wondering how he can convince the town meeting voters that this is the right course of action to take. So the empathy question puts you in the position of this person and asks you to think along his lines in how to respond. And as you can see, there were 129 responses to this. This is just a handful of them. You can see that we had lengthy responses from a variety of stakeholders: year-round Cape residents, a regular visitor, students. Some people opted not to represent their state. And they would all interact with each other. You can see that there's thumbs up, like buttons if you're on Facebook, that's a similar dynamic. And also comments that people can make in line with one another. So these questions generate responses and input for the planners, but they also create a community around people that are interested in the issue by driving conversation within the game. Another forum for this kind of public conversation is the soapbox, which is separate from challenge questions, which again is different from an online survey. It's different from other kinds of online engagements that maybe don't allow for this kind of public discourse to happen, where people can kind of shoot off of issues that have come up in the challenge questions and address tangential questions that they have, or promote the causes that they have become aligned with in the game. And we'll talk about those in just a second. Okay. We have some top players in the game. I will talk about the top players in the game. Let me just go back to this. Earn the most coins for generating the most conversation in the game. So you earn points for answering the question and also for getting input and response to the question, to the answers that you've given, which allows you to have a little more influence because there's higher points in giving money, funding to local causes, which 3 have won tonight and 3 will be awarded their $1,000 awards for having motivated the community to back them. Without further ado, and I'll be happy to take questions about the outcomes of this game. Obviously, the planners have gotten the data that was collected in the game. There's the immediate effect are the causes that have been funded that you will see the immediate effects of in the next few months to come. Our second runner-up that in the game is a high school student, or a middle school student, Troy Otter, who I hope is here tonight. Troy, around? Come on up, Troy. Troy was playing, did you play all 4 missions of the game? Played for mission 1, you're an 8th grade student at Lawrence School, and he was a brilliant player. He gave great input and really drove conversation in the game. Might see Troy again in a little bit when we talk about what else he was able to accomplish in this game. So, hang on. All right, our next runner-up was Jack Moran, who I'm not sure was able to be here tonight. Jack is at Mashpee High School, he's involved with Mashpee High School, so congratulations to him for his efforts in the game. And our top player was Jill Talbot. Very big fan of Ireland. Bronze toilets.
Wait. How did you pick a toilet?
And Jill also was able to accomplish great things in the game. She, by far, won most number of points. The top causes in the game have earned $1,000 each to get a project going in the community. The first of these came from a student who submitted a cause in the very last week of the game, which is very exciting. He was able to move from 14th place, I think, all the way up into 3rd place, which gives him $1,000 to enact algae drone at his school. It's Troy Otter of Lawrence. Troy, maybe you want to say a couple of words about what algae drone is. Okay.
fly over Cape or Falmouth, where I live, and look at ponds, take pictures of them, and see how much algae is growing on the pond. And then I can post that information on a website, and the public can look at it and see what they can do to help ponds around their neighborhood.
Steve, young people's voices in the game are so important to driving it forward, and Troy's cause really energized a number of his friends and family members in the community to get involved and give their input into the game. And that's really the point of these incentive causes. They're good causes for the community, but they get more people involved in the conversation for the planners. So it has a twofold effect. Second place was Care for the Cape and Islands. Coming in second, they get $1,000 to work on their capabilities farm project. So Jill, if you could come up again. Angela, if you could say a couple words about that.
Yeah, I'm very competitive, as you might notice. Care for the Cape and Islands, majority of you probably haven't heard of it yet because we're only in our second year. But I've been in the tourism industry for many years, and like all of you here, was concerned about our environment and wondered what I could do to help. And so Care for the Cape and Islands was developed to tap into our visitors, to give them an opportunity to support environmental, wildlife preservation, cultural heritage preservation projects that are the reasons, the things that they come here to enjoy. So my project was suggested to the Cape Cod Commission by Capabilities, and one of the projects this season we've been working on is raising money for their farm tours, to expand their farm tours. So money is going to go to that project. Thank you.
Congratulations to Jill, and thanks for driving conversation in the game. And our last winner of $1,000 for a community project is the Falmouth STEM program. Is Kristen representing Falmouth Science Programs? Come on up. Also the top affiliation in the game, so they got very involved in the project. Over the past 2 years, the Falmouth Public Schools have been working hard to increase the STEM opportunities for our students, creating new programs both at Lawrence Junior High School, where I teach, and at Falmouth High School. And a lot of the programs that we're creating center around ecological issues, including water quality. So I can't thank the people at Community Planet enough for taking care of about 3 weeks of lesson planning for me. I was thrilled at the level of engagement that my students committed to the game. I think it was a great opportunity for them because it really focused on the way they communicate with one another with the social media aspects of the game. And it was a wonderful way for them to learn not only about the issues going on in the community around them, but also the complexity of the solutions to the issues, which I think they're now more engaged with being part of, which is excellent. So thank you so much. Thank you. That's the engagement part of the games that we produce at the Engagement Game Lab. This is one platform of many that we've created to do civic intervention, civic outreach, to get public processes moving. They aren't purely educational games. They have real effects in the real world. We saw these 3 people representing their organizations in school, winning money to do actual projects, and you will see the outcomes, and we'll be hearing more from experts the Cape Cod Commission has brought together along with you to move forward in the planning process and the touring process, and use data from the game and the conversations that come up in the months ahead to move forward with the future of the Cape. If you have an issue in your community that you want to use Community Planet for, feel free to get in touch with the Engagement Game Lab. My email address is up here, Christina@engagementgamelab.org. And thank you so much for participating in your
Thank you, Christina. And again, as we said at the outset, if you have any questions about what you're hearing in these presentations, we will have open this up to a question and answer period for you a little bit later on. As we move on this evening, we're going to hear from the state and the federal level. We'll start at the state level and welcome up Beth Card, the Assistant Commissioner with the Mass DEP. Beth?
Great, thank you everyone. I cannot compete with bronze toilets or $1,000 checks, so I'm not even going to try. But thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you to Senator Wolf for really setting the stage for a great conversation tonight, and to the Cape Cod Commission and their whole team for pulling this together. It's a wonderful opportunity for us not only to get together to talk about the environmental challenges and the water quality issues that we are all facing here on Cape Cod, but I think more importantly, we're at a place where we're finally able to talk about what we are doing about it, and I think that feels really good to be in that place. The timing for this discussion is really perfect. We're at a crossroads. We're at a crossroads in the sense that we're able to now take all that we have learned about our watersheds through the Massachusetts Estuaries Project and take that and prepare for next steps and prepare for action. Mass DEP is really just so proud that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has awarded Barnstable County and the Cape Cod Commission a $3.35 million grant to develop a region-wide water quality management plan to help address these critical issues. The 208 process, as it's known, which I know we'll hear a lot more about later on tonight, is well underway, and we'll hear about the details, but I want to make sure that you know that Mass DEP is firmly committed to being a part of that process, not only through our very careful coordination with our partners at the Cape Cod Commission and EPA Region 1, but also with the communities and stakeholders like all of you who care so much about water quality improvements here on the Cape. The good news is that we've done a lot already. We've made significant investments, more than $12 million in the Massachusetts Estuaries Project, where we've collaborated with coastal communities, UMass Dartmouth, and others to provide science-based and economical approaches to addressing nitrogen pollutants. The MEP assesses each estuary and allows us to really determine the specific contributions and factors that are causing problems in those watersheds and help establish the nutrient load that we're trying to address in those different areas, taking into account the various characteristics for each watershed. And we've now drafted reports for almost all of the estuaries on Cape Cod, and as these reports have been completed, they have clearly demonstrated the need for Cape communities to move forward and to take action to address the significant impacts of nitrogen discharges. Based on the analysis that we've gathered so far, we've estimated that more than 90% of the estuaries are impaired and do not meet water quality standards. So we have a lot more work to do. We have a responsibility to manage wastewater discharges so that we are doing everything we can to improve water quality. And at DEP, we do that through a variety of regulatory tools that we are able to enforce. But we don't want to implement those regulatory programs in a silo. And that's really where the regional solution comes in. By looking at the issues from a regional perspective, we're allowed to do our jobs, all of our jobs, a lot better by looking at a more holistic watershed-based approach for addressing the impacts, limiting the amount of infrastructure that is needed by building shared systems targeted towards the areas of greatest need, allowing greater opportunities for solutions that involve decentralized and innovative approaches, and also considering where we use conventional approaches when necessary, and to really try to achieve the greatest economies of scale and spread costs over the largest numbers of users. So such regional planning is not intended to supplant the community's local planning efforts. We are fortunate that all Cape communities have undertaken some level of planning. A regional plan is really intended to build off of what hard work has already happened and help us to ensure that our water quality issues are addressed on a watershed basis. Part of this means that we really want to consider the full range of solutions, including structural, non-structural, decentralized, emerging technologies, and traditional solutions. This involves looking at alternative Title V systems and non-wastewater treatment alternatives, such as the use of wetlands or ponds for nitrogen attenuation, or alteration of water flow within an estuary to increase flushing. But in order to do these things, we need to know how they work. Do they work? How well do they work? And the 208 process is really giving us the chance to learn more about what technologies are available and help us to put all of the options on the table so that we can find the best fit for each community as we move forward. So I think most importantly, this approach, this regional approach that we're all in together on, features a really robust public participation process, including facilitated outreach efforts, watershed, advisory committees, extensive opportunities for public input and comment to help us build some consensus for the solutions that we have available to us. And this is really critical. The ultimate success of any plan will depend upon the input and commitment and support from all of the interested Cape stakeholders, including the residents, towns, county officials, legislators, and businesses and institutions. And I think you'll hear more about it, but I think the Commission is really to be commended for the very hard work that they've done on this effort to date. It's been incredible. They had a real tall order coming to them from Mass DEP, and they're really delivering, and we've got many months to go, but I think we're off to a very good start. One thing that I think is really interesting and intriguing and perhaps one of the more valuable parts of this initiative is that the Commission has designed the new approach of engaging a variety of interests and opinions that we just heard about from Christina on engaging folks on water quality challenges. The Cape 2.0 effort is just really cool. It's been really great. It's engaged a wide variety and interest from all kinds of people. So I think that's been wonderful. And this is not an approach that we regulators often embark in. And so I am really pleased that we had the opportunity to do it here. And it's brought a lot of different faces and voices to the table. So the effort has not only provided information, as we heard about the sources and potential impacts of wastewater issues facing the Cape, but gotten all kinds of feedback, which we really need to hear, and we really need to hear from everyone. So on behalf of Mass DEP, I certainly want to congratulate all of you who have participated in Cape 2.0. Well done. Congratulations to the winners. I think that's really excellent. But to everyone, I think I saw 285 people this round. I saw the number.
There were a total of 900 people.
Wow, 900 people. That's awesome.
Engaged in some level in the game.
That's really great. So it's great. So not only on Cape 2.0, but the rest of the initiative, we're happy to be partners with you and look forward to additional conversations as we move down the road in the next few months. So thanks for having me, and thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Beth. I'm glad you referred to the bronze toilet. I didn't think I'd ever say bronze toilet on the radio, but I will be in a couple days when we do a story on this, so congratulations. Let's talk about the federal level now from the U.S. EPA Region 1 and the Director of Air and Water Programs. It is Ken Morath. Ken?
I want the first algae drone. That's a really cool idea. Thank you for bringing that to us. And thank all of you for coming out tonight. It's really great to have so many people on the Cape engaged in these issues. The decisions that are in front of us about nitrogen issues and phosphorus issues on the Cape are going to affect the future of the Cape, not just in terms of the quality of the water, but also the economy of the Cape, possibly development patterns on the Cape, our greenhouse gas footprint. There are so many things that stem from these really momentous decisions, and governments can study options and present options, but to make a wise decision, we really need the communities engaged in these decisions so that we can make the right choices for the future of the Cape. So thank you all for your time. There really are some great environmental challenges here, as I don't have to tell any of you because you're living them. In some ways, they are similar to challenges we're facing across New England, in Lake Champlain and Long Island Sound, around the country, in the Gulf of Mexico, in Chesapeake Bay. I spent a lot of time talking with my counterparts around the country about these challenges, and I think we have some assets here that we don't always have in other places. One of them, of course, is the engagement of all of you and the communities on the Cape. But we have some other things too, and the first one I really want to point out, and I want to thank Beth personally, the commitment from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has really been tremendous, and we would not be where we are today if at the state at the highest levels of DEP and state government had not said, we're committed to find a solution, we will fund the planning process. There's personal commitment from the leaders at the very top to make this work, and that's a really essential element. So that's the first thing. The second is the commitment and capability of the Cape Cod Commission, which is an agency that has a very wide range of tools to look not just at water quality issues, but all the implications that stem from choices about those issues for the economy, for social issues on the Cape. The whole range of economic, environmental, and social issues are within the Commission's portfolio, and there's tremendous expertise and commitment in that agency, and that's a tremendous asset that we often don't have. We don't have a place to go like the Commission to look at regional water problems, and we have it here. EPA is going to do its part to address these issues on the Cape. This is at the very top of our priority list, not just in the New England region, which is my job, but also nationally. We have the engagement of our top leaders, the head of our water program for the whole country. The head of EPA is from Massachusetts, knows these issues well. We've talked with her extensively about them. There's a lot of understanding and support at the top levels of the federal government as well, that this problem has to be solved. One area where EPA has offered its support and resources and expertise is in the evaluation of technologies, including a lot of alternative and even experimental technologies. And we really think, and you're going to hear this from the state, you're going to hear it from the Cape Cod Commission, we really think that the answer here is going to be a mix of some conventional approaches, but also some really new approaches that may have better environmental footprints, better environmental outcomes, maybe more affordable, and EPA is committed to provide the resources of our Research and Development Office, which is 2,000 scientists and engineers who work on these issues, to help evaluate and test these technologies, to help design pilot programs, to monitor and evaluate the results of those programs so that the decisions that the communities wind up needing to make in the end can be based on the strongest possible technical basis. So we will step forward and provide that support. We're already closely engaged with both the Commission and the state as the planning process proceeds to make sure all the information is on the table. So we're going to continue working at all levels of government to bring this to the implementation stage. We have to finish the plan, develop some good plans, and then move to implementation. And obviously, we're not going to clean up anything until we get to implementation. We need to start acting. The whole future of the Cape depends on this, not just the future of the beaches, but the entire economy of the Cape. And it's impossible to imagine a healthy New England without a thriving and healthy Cape Cod. So we are absolutely committed to make this happen. We need to make it work because the future of the Cape depends on it, but we also need to make it work because if we don't, there are outside forces that will make it work in a different way. And I'm sure you're all aware there's litigation in federal court, and there are people who are seeking court oversight of this process. There are claims which were dismissed but now refiled. There's a very uncertain future in terms of litigation. We hope to make that litigation irrelevant by having this process that you're all part of come up with the solutions that can be implemented on the Cape and to move quickly to that implementation stage so that we don't need to worry about court supervision or anything like that. The future is in our hands now, and we need to shape it and rise to that challenge. Thanks.
Thank you, Ken. We appreciate that. I'm sure everybody in this room is very aware of the work over the last many decades of the APCC, and they've really been at the forefront of so many environmental issues on Cape Cod for quite a long time now. And they're also here tonight to present to you, and if you haven't seen it, you're going to see it here tonight. I have it's really a tremendous video, Saving Paradise, Cape Cod's Water at Risk. It's an APCC documentary. Ed DeWitt is the executive director of the APCC, and Elise Hugas with Undercurrent Productions. Ed, please.
Thanks, Matt. Hello, everyone. First of all, let me, on behalf of APCC, thank you for believing that communities can solve problems. Saving paradise on the brain, I guess. One of the things that we saw in 2013 on the Cape was a couple of elections that in our mind didn't go towards saving paradise. And we began to wonder whether we can have democratic solutions to our wastewater problems. So we did some outreach, particularly in the communities of Orleans, Eastham, and a little bit more in Dennis around some issues. And we wanted to know why democratic solutions weren't doing as well as perhaps they could. And one of the things that we heard was that this isn't a problem now, it's a problem in the future. It's not affecting me, it's not affecting my neighbors. I think the Cape is just swell the way it is right now. And we started thinking about how can we sort of begin a conversation neighbor to neighbor. Because one of the other things that people told us was they don't like lectures, they don't like political stump speeches. They want to hear about what this means to people neighbor to neighbor. So we reached out to a Cape Cod film production company, Undercurrent Productions, and we began trying to figure out how to begin having this conversation about water quality on Cape Cod. And I think it's fitting that the movie is shown in an art museum tonight because we had two artists that really worked on this film and put it together. And I'd like to introduce them. It's Elise Hugas, who is the principal producer, and Daniel Kochenu. And I screwed it up again, didn't I? I have this mental block about his name, but his eye is what you'll see in the movie. And it is an artistic presentation, and we hope you'll enjoy it. We hope you'll find it beginning a conversation of neighbor to neighbor about what water means on Cape Cod and where we are with the water. And again, thanks again for your participation in all of this. And do I need to do anything? Okay.
Water quenches our thirst, nourishes our plants, refreshes our spirit. Water is the lifeblood of our community and our economy.
I chose this spot because I wanted a waterfront piece of property, and I was doing fishing on the side. And then I got bit by it. Bit by it means it's like trying to discover your treasure hunting every day. We're on the Eel River, and we're heading out to the sound and other parts of in the seacoast. We're going to look at some of the stuff. And we always try to find new areas to go, and that becomes difficult. Probably because of the changes of the houses and people, water quality. I think the times have changed the currents, and the bottom has changed. We used to plant all here in Cohawk. We used to just put steamers all along here, all along the shoreline. The whole town was a steamer town. Like I said, I don't know what's here anymore. We don't know. I'm getting all weak. There's nothing in there. You see that one? That's not good. This is a co-op. There's only one. They will live here. They won't set here. There used to be hill grass, but right now it's just muck. I'll say that at least 15, 20 years ago, I started to see it differently. And this is what I believe is suffocating the plants. Because that, see that green stuff that's on that beach? That's all the way out there. It comes up, and if a good windstorm should take it and push it out, or man better would, I don't know. If it never goes away, the problem never solves. So we seem to be losing between pollution, water quality, we're losing ground, natural ground. I think today the self-employed, if you think 250, 300, to me that's pretty good, you know. Ain't been a bad thing, these young kids that are doing like 100 on water, maybe less, and put gas in your boat, and do this and that, and break your body. I've been doing it for about 30 years, so I've seen changes. I've seen that break come up full, I've seen it come up empty. We do it because we love it. I know we get bit by that salt water. It's just a way of life around here on Cape Cod.
Well, the first time I drove down the street, the sign was still there on the front of the subdivision, says Blueberry Bank. It was kind of nice thought. The houses were well kept, and some had lawns, still like a nice neighborhood. I bought this place because it had a beautiful setting, and the house had the right mixture of what I was looking for. As part of the sale, you have to do certain things. The real estate transaction, one of those is to have water tested. And so having water tested to me was like having the smoke detectors tested. So, you know, they tested the water and they said it was okay. They never thought to ask, well, what was the test and what was the result of the test. Most people think of a well as sort of a pristine artesian well that you're drawing your water from. You don't think of pollution in your well. When they said the water was fine, I said, oh, you know, it was great. And so the first time that I had it tested, it came back at 12.0 parts per million, which I still didn't know the 10 was the threshold. They don't tell you that. Even Chicago doesn't tell you that 10 is the threshold. And so I had it retested, and it came back at 9.8. So we went along for another cycle in 2010, I guess it was. We got tested again, and it came back at 15. So it was definitely on the march. It wasn't until a couple of years ago that I actually knew that nitrates and septic were sort of went hand in hand. The reason I had nitrates is because our septic system was in the same place as our water system. Everybody else's septic flows through and finds its way into my aquifer. We decided to saturate the raw water, which we have since then. And we probably go through, I don't know, 6 or 7 gallons a week. The East Hampton Municipal Water Supply, right? Reach out, grab yourself a gallon, rated 89 cents. That's up 2011. 40% of the wells in this town had a nitrate level greater than 2. So to me, 40% of the wells would pretty big number. Add that together with the fact that a lot of people don't test their water. it's kind of scary to think what the really number is. You know, so, yeah, we have a problem. I had one neighbor who was convinced that my nitrates is because I don't want. And I figured that I don't fertilize on the lawn. And I tried to tell them that something like 79% of the nitrate pollution is coming from septic systems versus 8% coming from lawns. One of my neighbors, pretty close by, has had children here since I moved here. One of them was born since I moved here, and he's never had to protest it. If I had children, I'd be even more careful with the water than I am now. You know, you have to think about what we all put down the road. And I worry that when visitors come here, sometimes, you know, our population slows from 5,000 to 30,000. There's 25,000 more people here that have no clue what throwing that toilet is ending up in our water. I can't even think about what they're making for us.
When we go to the bathroom, all of our waste gets flushed into a septic tank. A septic tank is a concrete box that's very easy to start. They're designed to separate solids from liquids and break down the bacteria from our toilets, sinks, and showers. Septic systems do a good job of keeping germs from reaching our water supply. But one thing the septic tank can't do is break down nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus, the building blocks of the food we eat. Those nutrients seep into the groundwater, joined by all the discharges from our neighbor septic systems too. Over time, the nitrogen and phosphorus from our septic systems end up polluting the lakes, the coastal ponds, and the bays that we all love on Cape Cod. All that nitrogen and phosphorus becomes food for plants, including harmful algae. Algae isn't just blind swim. It's making it hard for eelgrass and other beneficial plants to live. As the algae grows, it uses up oxygen and blocks sunlight from reaching underwater plants. When the algae dies and decomposes, it uses up even more oxygen. If it gets really bad, the plants die, the fish die, the water smells.
Oh, my folks loved it, or they loved it here, and that's why they put their house here. This one shows the clarity of the bottom right down to the water, and that's what it was like over here in the cove. You could see 5 feet, 6 feet down. It was still clear. You could see the bottom. There was no silt on the bottom. My dad's actually walking on it. He knew where everything was and how to get there. You know, we ate fish. We fished this pond in wintertime. A beautiful yellow perch, bass, catfish. We lived on fish. As I say, he's native, and that's what we did. I eat a lot less fish than I used to. That's all we ate, but oh, I love fish, and I do eat it, yeah, but not from the pond. They started to have black spots on them, and I just didn't feel comfortable with it. I know some people eat them now and might still do so, but that's their prerogative. I don't prefer to eat them right now. This is not like what it used to be. I haven't been on the pond for a long time, I'll be honest with you, just because of the way it's been. Some days it smells. Like if you breathe right now, you know, it just doesn't smell the same, that's for sure. This is what drives me crazy. Aside from the algae, what kind of fisherman want to leave something like this in the pond? You know? My kids noticed the smell too, and they stopped swimming. They said, "Mom, it smells." I said, "I told you, you know. I prefer you don't swim in." And for a long time, in the 90s, we were finding dead fish pumpkin seeds, yellow perch. I mean, so something definitely happened to the pond. I mean, turtles kill fish and eat fish, and might be fish bitten, but it was something else. It wasn't that. Now, I think people realize that development is doing nothing around the globe to help the earth. People don't take it seriously and realize that every little thing that we do affects the water, for sure. We have to think clearer about what we're ingesting, what we're putting into the pond. We have to change inside and out, people, average people. All of us have to change before the pond can change. If everyone that has something going into this pond, from their cesspools or whatever else, if they're still putting fertilizer in, it's going to take forever. It's never going to change.
We know how to keep water clean and pure. We just have to act. For ideas on what you can do to preserve your water, your ponds, your ocean, please visit apcc.org.
Still out there? Yeah. And you want to comment at this point, and we'll take some questions in just a moment. Anything you want to wrap up with the video?
I just want to apologize. You can see what happens when you use computers. They're not always perfect in terms of that. It's much more perfect if you go to apcc.org and watch it there, and feel free to share it with your neighbors and friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. As we come towards the conclusion of the evening, Paul Niedzwiecki is ready to join us. Paul has immersed himself, no pun intended, Paul, has immersed himself in Paul has immersed himself and the Cape Cod Commission into this issue. And on a program Paul was on with me maybe about a year ago, told me a story about, I think you were in the Mashpee River, and I think you did a boring, you pulled up a boring, and it was just, it was dead. There was nothing down there. Can we call you Mr. Water now? Kind of make Cape Cod. Paul Niedzwiecki is the Cape Cod Commission, the Executive Director. Paul's going to update us on the 208. Paul?
Thank you, Matt. And thank everyone for turning out tonight. I also want to thank a lot of the partners that we see, Emerson College, at least it was a great film, APCC, Ed, and of course Beth Hart from DEP, Ken Moran from DPA. It's great that they could join us this evening because it is such an integral part of the process to date. And I have two presentations tonight, but it will run a little bit long. So I have a 72-slide presentation that's very detailed. I have a 5-slide presentation. So just in the spirit of engagement, for the sake of the process, who wants to see the 72? So we're going to go with the 5-page, the 5-screen presentation, which is a little bit off. But most of you that are here tonight are stakeholders in this process, one way or another. And we've asked a lot of you. We've asked you to sort of consume a lot of detail, and we have a lot of detail that we've collected and that we're presenting on the website. So we're going to take a little bit of a different approach tonight. We're here for any questions that you have after. We also have a presentation in the other room where we have Watershed MVP and a couple of other things to show you if you have any questions after this. And I do want to just call out specifically Winning North Cross the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce, who's been a tremendous partner on this issue, the Chamber and Wendy individually. And I also want to call out my staff. I have the honor and the privilege to work with some incredibly talented people every day, many of whom are in the room tonight. Specifically, Ann McGuire is here, so yes, Ann, she's leaving the room now. The price of success and sort of turning out a crowd like this is public humiliation, so you're welcome. So let's wrap up a little bit about where we've been and where we're going to go. So the 208 water quality update. This is really what we're talking about. This is this precariously placed peninsula, this fragile peninsula, basically a sandbar. And we have to deal with a water quality issue in our marine ecosystems. And there are lots of numbers that surprise people as we start to step through this process. One is that less than 4% of the population of Massachusetts lives on that peninsula. 20% of the Title V systems in the state are on that peninsula. So when you talk about the problem the Cape faces on wastewater, in relation to the problem the rest of the Commonwealth faces, it's an order of magnitude different. And so that calls for a different solution. And we were lucky enough to have the Commonwealth of Massachusetts resource the Commission to do a regional plan, because there has been a ton of very good local planning that's been happening for over a decade on the Cape to fix this problem, knowing that this day was going to come. But it's happened under a structure that was designed really 35 years ago. And a structure that doesn't allow a lot of creativity and challenges the limited resources of a lot of municipalities that are engaged in that process. So in January of last year, the governor designated Cape Cod Commission to do an update to the 208 water quality plan that was done in 1978. I was 13, so I don't take a lot of credit for that plan, but it was extremely sort of prescient in the way that it saw the nitrogen problem and the way it was going to happen with residential development and wastewater and Title V systems and on-site wastewater disposal. So we are actually updating that 1978 plan. But whenever the Cape Cod Commission is tapped to do anything regionally, there are predictable results. So what are they doing? What are they building? What are they going to do to us now? And so we had to overcome a lot of this as we sort of put the process together. And it took us several months to do that. And so I show a picture of the Death Star up there. Star was produced in 1976, close to 78. But I do that because I show this to my staff, and it reminds me how old I'm getting, because half of the people that are working on the plan don't know what that is. But the algae drones are getting us to that point. So to the extent that people were nervous about the Commission before, to have an army of algae drones is not going to make them any more comfortable about what we're doing. But what we tried to do in earnest is to build a stakeholder engagement process that has integrity. Because under Section 208, the stakeholder engagement process is as important as the technical review in the watersheds that's going to happen as part of it. And so we have done the outreach, and we've really gone the extra mile. And there were times as we started to develop the plan that some of our partners said, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're going to get 170 plus people together to talk about this one issue on the Cape at the same time? And there could have been other kinds of results that happened. But that's not been the experience in the first half of this process here. So what we did instead was design a program that looks at the 57 watersheds that feed estuaries and embankments. And we broke them down into 11 subgroups around the Cape. And we put together stakeholder groups in every one of those 11 groups. So 170 plus people meeting across the Cape over the last few months. And so we designed a process that kicked off for earnest in July, where we had our first kickoff meeting and recruited stakeholders. And we did that in 4 subregions, so 4 meetings across the Cape. We followed that up in August with an affordability and financial workshop in those same 4 sub-watershed groupings. Then we broke down into these 11 groups, and we presented baseline information. Everything that we knew, every report that we had about water quality in your watershed was presented for your review. It's a good job. We have it. What are your attitudes and opinions about the different reports that are available? After establishing that informational baseline, we met for a second time. And we reviewed a technology matrix that I believe is unprecedented today. in the breadth of the technologies that we consider and the information that we collected in one spot on those technologies. And that's required a lot of effort. But we met with the stakeholders in that second group to evaluate that, to talk about how we could now take that baseline information and the information about technologies and get ready for a third meeting that's going to happen in a couple of weeks to look at how we can problem solve in these watersheds. Because you have to remember, one of the underlying tenets of the program is that it's a watershed management plan. Because the watersheds define the jurisdiction of the problem. Because whatever you put into the ground in that watershed winds up in that estuary. So that first 6 months has been about that. And that third meeting is really going to be about the application, the process. How do we look at solving these problems on a watershed basis? The next 6 months is going to be about the jurisdiction of the solutions. So the first 6 months was about the jurisdiction of the problems on the watersheds. The second 6 months is how do we sort of roll this up and talk about the jurisdiction of the solutions. What's also been marveled through this process is an issue that's happening nationally of watershed governance. How do you engage people as a citizen of a watershed rather than a citizen of any other particular political jurisdiction that they belong to? And then how do you organize those people in a problem-solving way to influence decision makers and clean up these problems? So we'll take these 11 watershed working groups, and many of the stakeholders are here tonight. We're going to meet in December. We're going to discuss particular applications and ways to solve these problems on a watershed basis. And then we're going to meet again in January. And so you will be notified of that meeting in January, and it will be a stakeholder summit. And at that summit, we will discuss what we've learned to date in great detail. We're on the phone with our independent consultants, the Consensus Building Institute, Cambridge today, and they notified me that that meeting needed to be 6 hours long. I did not have a positive response to that, but I understand why. It needs to be that long. So it's going to be in depth. From that, we're going to roll these 11 watershed working groups up into 4. So we're going to go back where we started from. And Upper Cape, Mid Cape, Lower Cape, and Outer Cape sub-regional designations. So that we can start to have municipalities and those fiscal entities talk to one another about how we're going to deal with what we've learned with. And how we're going to take these solutions and apply them in a way that makes sense, in a way that we can get towards implementation, in a way that we can influence up and work with our partners at DEP and EPA to get the regulatory flexibility we might need to try things that we haven't tried before. Because that's how we're going to solve the problem. That order of magnitude, 20% of the Title V systems, less than 4% of the population, seasonal population of 216,000, that triples sometimes in the summer. We have a different problem, and we need a different solution. And we're going to find it. And the reason I know that we're going to find it is because of you who have shown up tonight, you that give your time on these stakeholder, in these stakeholder groups. I'm extraordinarily confident. I'm pleased with the tremendous amount of positive feedback that we've had from this process to date. Now, not all of that has necessarily been positive. We take the negative too, and we try to adapt. And we've heard about Emerson College's dean and our efforts to try to bring new people to this discussion. 900 people registered online to play that second game. In most of these communities, even though good planning's been happening for a decade, for the most part, it's been a handful of people in each community that's controlled that decision-making process. 900 people that are not the people I see at the meetings when I go out at night, that's bringing a whole new energy to this, an energy that's going to be necessary in order to take the steps that we need to take to fix the problem. So we are going to engage in that. Some people say, well, it's a serious issue, we shouldn't be playing games. I hope you found out tonight it's a little bit more than playing games. It's about serious algae drones. And it's about engaging the community in a different way. And even some of the comments online, we hear back, well, we know what the solutions are, we just need to do it, and we don't need to be writing poems. Well, we hear that too. but I hope tonight you understand why we're taking a different approach. And we're willing to do whatever is necessary to involve as many people as possible in solving this problem. Because that's what needs to happen in order to get to where we need to be. So, with that, we're going to continue the process that you all are really leading at this point. We're going to be responsive to that. We're also are more than willing to take the criticism. I think it was Harry Truman who said once, referring to sort of Washington, that you want a friend in Washington, get a dog. I think that goes to being executive director of the Kickback Commission too. So I want to leave you to let you know that I have checked that box. And Sophie and I thank you very much for your participation. So we're here to answer questions. We've got a presentation in the next room if you have any detailed questions about Watershed MVP. And one more thing. We had the Emerson College sort of game lab today show you these 2 games. And they were run in 3 missions each a week long. So 3-week missions for the first game, 3-week mission for the second game. And this has been a great way to engage online. But these are sort of time games. So we wanted something at the commission that we could introduce people who have questions about this process in a way that actively engages them and doesn't take a lot of their time, provide some useful information. So we have constructed the end of the slideshow. We have constructed another online game that's going to be available in 2 weeks, and it's called CCH2O. This is going to be available all the time. And it's a gameplay sort of environment where there are, it's very limited, but you can type in your address. It takes you to your watershed, identifies your watershed. It gives you demographic information about where you are in the watershed and what's happening sort of around you. And then it lets you go to a mock watershed. And it gives you some information about that watershed, and it lets you select treatment options and place those tiles on the game in a very interactive way. So we're going to keep this going, and actually, I think for the remainder of the 2-week process, this website and this portal will become the place that we refer people to when they have questions, and it will branch out from there. And that is what was supposed to sort of pop up at the end. But this is CCH2O in 2 weeks. So the launch date is right now scheduled to be the Monday before Thanksgiving. CCH2O.org is the website. It's temporarily live in the beta version right now. We're going to take it down at midnight. But this isn't just a fad. It's not just something we try. The ability to take complex data sets, visualize that data, make it available to you, take complex data sets, make it clear and concise so that you can use it, is part of what we need to do and part of the business of government going forward if we want an informed population to make choices that are consistently in their best interest, short, medium, long term. So, thank you for your attention this evening, and I will, David, you had a question.
Yeah, as a grassroots Sierra Club activist, we've been trying to get climate change included in this dialogue and cleaning up the phosphorus in our freshwater ponds and their nitrogen and our impacted coastal embayments. And I went last week to hear about the EPA and Narragansett Bay triple bottom line well, and it didn't appear that they actually included climate change, either its effect on nutrient cycling or fisheries. And I was wondering when they convert that model to the 3BS model for Cape Cod, if we're going to include climate change. There's a lot of things that might constrain what we can do as far as restoring habitats like eelgrass beds and restored water quality in the face of climate change occurring at the same time.
Yeah, the question is EPA is working with Rhode Island and Narragansett Bay on a triple bottom line model for that system. EPA has generously offered to do the same for the Cape, and we're working with them now. There are a couple of different formats. This is going to take climate change and sea level rise will be part of it. We've also, with APCC and the USGS, just begun a 3-year sea level rise study for the Cape that's very specific. So as we get this information, we will incorporate it into the models that we have and to our decision-making tools that we're constructing. So we're trying to get the best information that we have on it, and we'll be putting it and using it to a process as appropriate. So yes. Sir.
So what is the interface between EPA and FEMA with the new FEMA maps? How are they going to interface with the JET in this problem?
I think EPA, I'm not going to speak for them, but if I did speak for them, I would disavow any sort of connection officially with FEMA. The FEMA flood maps are really the result of more accurate kind of LiDAR data, and they're based on a model that's not part of any of the considerations of the 208 model right now. It is, wearing the other hat I have, the Cape Cod Commission, a great concern as it relates to coastal impacts, economic development, home insurance rates, and other issues. So we have developed a model that's available on the Cape Cod Commission website where you can check where your property are, where any property that you're interested in, and you can slide that map and see whether you're affected by the FEMA flood maps. And we'll be engaged in that discussion, but it is not officially connected to the 208 water quality planning update anymore.
Why not?
Because it's a different model. I mean, it's really sort of looking at sort of different elevations, storm surges right now, and to the extent that we don't have full capacity to sort of understand and use that model, we're not going to sort of complicate that. I think there are other models we will use that will be more appropriate for the purpose of wastewater infrastructure planning. Yeah.
I'm in a working group, and it seems like when somebody proposes a solution, somebody else jumps up and says, oh, well, we've been trying to get that done for the past 20 years, and some state agency has said, no, you can't do it.
Yes.
No matter what it is you propose, it's always been proposed before, and some state agency says you can't do it. Now, how are we going to implement some of these alternative proposals or solutions?
That's a great question. Because that is exactly what we've heard. Because the good news there is not necessarily a lot new under the sun as it relates to these technologies. There is some emerging technology, there is some new stuff, but a lot of it has been around for a long time. And, I would, in DEP's defense, for example, as it relates to sort of Title V systems anyway, they have been applying Title V in an appropriate stand from their perspective as a consumer protection policy. Well, they don't want people to try new systems, have them fail, and then have to pay twice for that system. So I understand that perspective. But I think we have unique opportunities and institutions on the Cape that other parts of the Commonwealth don't have. So I think we should have some flexibility that other parts of the Commonwealth don't have in order to try that. For example, there's an environmental bond bill going now through the House and Senate now. If there were a significant earmark in that environmental bond bill that applied to alternative technologies and their use and implementation on the Cape, then that risk of having people pay twice would go away.
Some of these aren't even alternatives. Some of them are just simply a matter of widening an outlet channel for an estuary and keeping it open with a breakwater or something like that.
Yes.
Or maybe dredging a freshwater pond to allow the water to dwell there a little longer.
Last year, for example, there were a couple of projects that came up. The Bourne's Pond in Falmouth, Mill Pond in Barnstable, and I believe Parks River, where culvert expansions and some limited dredging were planned. And the Cape Cod Commission was an applicant for sort of an expedited ENF process to push those. And we got sort of rejected from the state process at that time. But we didn't just take no for an answer. So we've actually been working pretty closely with the state over the last 12 months. We're going to get Bourne's Pond, we're going to get some of those culvert opening projects. Parker's River has funding now. So some of these are ready to go. We're going to see them happen in the short term, and we're going to be able to measure the impact in a way that should make it easier for us to permit other projects in the future.
Glad to hear that.
Sir?
I'm Herbert Pistoler from Gull Pond Area Conservation Association, a private group in Wellfleet. And we've been monitoring the water quality in the Cape Cod chain of ponds for 30 years. And being entirely in the national seashore, we've called upon the scientists at the Cape Cod National Seashore. Who've been very, very helpful to us over 30 years. And they have an immense amount of data that I've found has not been used enough. And they haven't been mentioned at all tonight.
Yeah.
And I hope there is some interaction with the scientists at the Cape Cod National Seashore and this immense body of data that they've collected for 50 years.
Yeah. There are a lot of other partners that aren't here right now, and in some of the discussions, the transition from the watershed-based groups to the sub-regional groups are going to involve new partners. One of the things that has to happen as part of the 208 plan outcomes and when we get to implementation is monitoring. You can't have real adaptive management plans unless you have a funded and consistent sort of monitoring approach with Cape Cod. We work with the Provincetown Center for Coastal Studies and a network of scientists that have been monitoring coastal and ocean situations for a while on that. In January, we're going to put together an ad hoc monitoring group that will start to follow that issue as we go forward. The other issue that we do talk about a lot, even though we didn't mention it tonight, is that there are 15 towns on the Cape, and then there are 2 significant federal landholdings in the Cape Cod National Seashore and the Massachusetts Military Reservation. And they, in essence, are the 16th and 17th municipalities. And they have to be part of the process of solving these problems. That will happen in the second 6 months too, as they're invited to the table. We do have a regulatory, legal, and institutional group that meets regularly, and we'll be bringing more partners into that as we get into the second phase of this plan before we have a draft ready in June. We had a phone call with Mass Development, who works with Massachusetts Military Reservation today, about a challenge grant that's opportunity that the state has and how we might look at sharing some services and the treatment facility up there is on the docket to discuss. So in both instances, we are working with the federal government, and you'll see that the pace of that start to pick up. Hildy.
I'm concerned about the narrow focus of the whole project on nitrogen. I'm in one of the working groups, and I see again on this next gate that it's only focusing on nitrogen and doesn't include phosphorus and other nutrients.
Yes.
And also pollutants of gas.
Yes. It has the plan in this problem-solving process absolutely will consider other nutrients. Phosphorus is a limiting factor in fresh water. Tidal 5 failures, we've developed at the Commission a new GIS layer that looks at areas where there are potential Tidal 5 failures, and of course, contaminants of emerging concern. They come up in almost every group that we talk about. So all of that has to be on the table when we're considering interventions, strategies, and remediation efforts to solve that nitrogen problem. The reason why we talk about nitrogen is that's the point of emphasis made in the update when we were given the designation. It's also the regulatory drive that at the end of the day for this process, we have to come up with a plan that moves us towards meeting water quality standards in those degraded water bodies, and nitrogen is going to lead that discussion, but it is not an exclusive focus at all. Sir?
Yes, I'm a property owner in East Sandwich, and also involved in alternative technology, and I know that they're management intensive. And I'm wondering what part of the planning process involves something like on-site wastewater treatment management districts to fund using federal and state monies to develop a management plan for these systems.
Yeah. Operation and management of some of the alternatives is an issue. We're developing decision-making tools that take a triple bottom line approach to look at that, to factor that in consideration of particular technologies. And the next logical consideration as we move from that problem-solving jurisdiction on the watershed level that I discussed to the next step, to the problem-solving jurisdiction from the problem jurisdiction. Those are the issues we have to look at. So where are the economies of scale for operation and management of alternative systems? Would the creation of districts to do that qualify them for funding? Is there new available funding out there to support that kind of effort? So that is definitely on the table as we move into the second phase of the planning process. Thank you. Great. Well, I want to thank you again for your time.